My interview with Howard continued with his experiences with Christ and the angels. As it did, our time turned more into a conversation to explore these experiences along with his new perspectives. His time with Christ is endlessly fascinating and encouraging to me, and I wanted to get as much as I could cover with him. But it was apparent to me in editing this film that we were only scratching the surface. Aside from the time limits I had with him, it was clear that the world that awaits us that he got a glimpse of is far beyond our capability to understand. Nevertheless, in a world where darkness gains new footholds every day, I asked Howard to describe as much as he could that would help us in our everyday lives to understand God's purpose and love for us. His initial answer was surprising at first, but very understandable when you accept our powerful and egocentric humanity, both in the realms of the religious as well as those indifferent or hostile to God. We began our conversation with my asking Howard to tell me about what Jesus told him after his life review.
Interestingly, I just want to say that in some ways I regret speaking about that or talking about it because I found it bizarre and disturbing how many people want to argue with me or denounce me about the things that Jesus said to me. Because, like, man, take it up with him. It's not, I don't really feel like a need to defend him. He's perfectly capable of being who he is.
The first question Howard asked Jesus is probably the first question we would all ask. Why did you create us?
When I asked him why, you said, why are we here? And I asked him that very question, why did God make me? And he gave me an answer and I couldn't understand it. And I said, I don't understand you. And he said, well, let me put it in a way that you can understand it. He said that the world is like God's garden, and God made you and everyone else to bloom in that garden and to be beautiful. And God made every one of you unique and special to be beautiful in your own way. Okay, I understand that. I mean, that's simple enough. And another variation on that question, this is much later on in the conversation, when he told me that I had to come back to the world and I was trying to convince him not to send me back to this world. I asked him, what would I do if I came back to this world? And before he had a chance to answer, I said, I'm an artist and I would like to build you a shrine. If I were to come back to the world, I'd like to build a shrine. And I said, I'd make this shrine so big and beautiful and bizarre that people would come from all over the world out of curiosity to see what it was about. And what they would find was, it would be about you. And then that would make them think about you. And that's what I would like to do if he came back. And he said, I'd rather you didn't do that. And I said, what? I said, people have been building shrines to you, forever. There's lots of shrines. Why can't I build a shrine? I'd like to build a shrine. He said, you spent so much of your life hiding out in the studio, avoiding people. He said, I would prefer it if you didn't avoid people by building this big shrine. And he said, the other thing is, he said, I don't really care about shrines. He said, people like to build shrines. And he said, I understand that it makes them feel good. But he said, it does absolutely nothing for me or for God. We don't have any use for them whatsoever. He said, if that's what amuses you, I guess that's what you got to do. But he said, don't do it for me. Don't deceive yourself in thinking that it's something that I want or need, because I don't. I'm like, okay, well, you shot down my idea. What's your idea of what would I do? And he said, love the person that you're with. And I said, okay, great, I'll do that. No problem. What do you want me to do? And he said, that I just told you what I want you to do, love the person you're with. And I said, yeah, but after I do that, then what do you really want me to do? And he said, no, that is what I want you to do, is love the person you're with. And I said, well, that's simple enough. That's easy. I'll do that. And he said, oh, really? Well, that's what I want you to do. And he said, that's enough. And I said, how is it enough? And he said, if you do that, he said, you'll change the world. And I said, oh, you want me to change the world? And he said, exactly. That's what I put you in the world in the first place, to change the world. And I said, well, there's been a lot of people that have tried to change the world, and they usually turn out really badly. And I said, I can think of examples like Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong. All of them wanted to change the world, and they made it worse. If I go back and try and change the world, why isn't it possible that I could make like a lot of terrible mistakes and make the world a worse place? And he said, the way that I want you to change the world is by love the person that you're with. And I said, wait a minute, that's a contradiction. You want me to change the world, but you want me to just love the person that I'm with? And he said, yeah, that's the plan. That's the big plan. And I said, I don't see how loving the person that I'm with is going to change the world. And he said, if you love the person that you're with, then they will go out and love the person that they're with, and they'll go out and love the person that they're with. And he said, it'll be like a chain reaction, and love will conquer the world, and everybody will love one another. He said, that's God's big plan. And I said, it's not going to work. And he said, why won't it work? And I said, because I love the person I'm with. They walk across the street and get run over by a truck. Everybody gets angry and upset. And he said, Brian, that happens, but it's really God's plan, and nothing's going to stop it. It's going to happen. And I said, well, even if you had like 1 million people, I don't think it's going to happen. And he said, there's more than 1 million people in the plan. He said, there's a lot of people in the plan. And I said, well, from what I know of the world, you don't have enough. And he said, well, actually, we have all the angels are in the plan. And he said, there's a lot of them. There's more angels than there are people in the world. And I said, so the angels are doing this? And he said, there's millions of people, there's all the angels, and there's God. He said, it's inevitable. The plan is going to happen. And I said, if that's your plan, I'll do it, but I just don't really see much hope for it. And he said, well, because you just don't really know enough to see how it's going to happen. Okay. So my solution to everything is to love one another. And when I read the Bible and found out that was written in the Bible as Jesus' commandment, love one another. This is my commandment, that you love one another. And he said the same thing in other places, in other ways, but basically that's the program. I have tried to be part of that program. So I personally have no big plan other than to be loving. The only fly in the ointment is that I thought it was going to be easy, and it turns out to be the hardest thing that I've ever done, because it sounds so simple, but it's really difficult. It's easy. It's like easy for me to love my mother because she was a really nice woman and she was a very loving woman. So not hard to love someone who's really good and really loving. But what do you do with someone who's difficult or actually really nasty? Those are hard people to love. And what does it mean to love someone? I mean, sometimes to love someone means you need to incarcerate them.
Yeah.
And that's not like a lot of fun. Sometimes loving someone means you have to put as much distance between them and you as possible and tell them to never call you. That's not a lot of fun. I mean, it's loving people is sounds so simple, but it's very difficult.
As Howard explained this, I relate an experience I had in a recent trip to Thailand. My daughter came with me on this trip, and one afternoon we were watching a parade of Buddhist monks in a religious celebration near the reputed walking streets of the city where we were staying. Alongside us were other people, many consisting of prostitutes who were watching and participating in the blessings that came from the monks in the parade. A loud-mouthed and vulgar European man was skirting around being terribly verbally abusive to these women who he was trying to manipulate to go with him. His candor and treatment of these women was truly sick and disturbing. Not wanting to leave my daughter unattended, I still lamented what I could possibly do or say to make even a dent in this individual's consciousness of his own evil pursuits. It was a frustrating conclusion that there was really nothing I could do or say to divert his path. But Howard gave me his response of what a truly loving thing to do for this individual may have been. The thing he needed most was to be stopped for his own good.
But probably, a real act of love might have been to take a aluminum baseball bat and break his shins.
I thought about taking him in a back alley and explaining the facts of life to him.
Yeah.
One of the things that Howard mentioned in his book is that God gives us all the life we need. This is not to say that our life here is all we need. It may well be very incomplete. But Howard relays that we have so much more awaiting us. There are not two realms of heaven and earth, and when we die, we are done learning and in some sort of soulful retirement. And if more life awaits us, could that mean reincarnation for us, perhaps on this earth?
I don't believe in reincarnation. I believe that God will give us lots of life and experiences beyond this world, but the idea of coming back to this world is absolutely not, according to what Jesus told me, it's just not an option at all, because this world is one of the lowest grades of spiritual development in the universe. And would you send someone back to daycare over and over and over again? I mean, this is, there's a universe full of life, heaven's full of learning, and as we progress in our spiritual growth, there's lots of things to do, lots of places to go, lots of things to learn. And the whole idea of people coming back as beetles and cows and dogs and cats, and it's all silly. It's just absolute nonsense, and it's not happening.
I wanted to explore this more with him, and I was glad to hear that he was receptive to talking about it. I have had personal experiences that suggest that reincarnation has happened, and there are overwhelming numbers of stories that are credible and compelling, especially with children, that perhaps some of us have come back to live here again. Howard has experienced this himself. His answer leads into an amazing future that God revealed to him of being able to share lives with others, on this world and throughout the universe with other realities. The universe is teeming with life, and there are other universes and dimensions he was shown that are beyond our comprehension. Someday, humanity will share in it all.
Consciousness is permeable, and so that all of us, can pick up on and sometimes acquire bits and pieces of other consciousness. Like I have a very vivid memory of a short time of a little Jewish girl during World War II in a concentration camp. And I don't know why I have this memory of her, but I mean, when I say of her, it's like I remember what she experienced. But I by no means believe I was ever her, but somehow I picked up that. And I believe that people can pick up other people's consciousness, other people's memories and things like that, because it's all permeable. And of course, one of the things that would be ideal and will happen in the future is that we will be able to share consciousness with other people. But it's more than just telepathically communicating what time of day is in your time zone. It's going to be telepathically sharing life experience. One of the things that I asked Jesus about was, like, in the future we're going to be able to travel to other planets and other worlds and things like that. And he said, you won't need to. And I said, why? And he said, because you will be able to communicate with other intelligent beings in other worlds and other dimensions and share their lives, and they share their lives with you. You don't have to physically move to experience what other people are experiencing. There's a universe full of life, heavens full of learning, and as we progress in our spiritual growth, there's lots of things to do, lots of places to go, lots of things to learn.
I asked him more about our ability to share lives with others, and that the future Jesus showed him was one devoid of technology, at least as we would recognize it.
Yeah, me too. I was actually very disappointed because in the future that he showed me, there wasn't any technology. If there was technology, it was so subtle that I couldn't recognize it as technology. So that's the only other thing I could think of. That if there was some technology around, I couldn't see it. You know, it's like when you think about people from a couple hundred years ago, looking at the technology today, like, would they recognize your iPad as a useful instrument? Frankly, no. You know, does it cut? Does it chop? Can you start a fire? You know, can you light a rope? I mean, it doesn't do anything to them. Yeah. So I'm wondering if what I was showed of the future, if there was technology there, but it was, like I said, so incredibly subtle that
we couldn't identify.
I wouldn't know what it was.
My conversation with Howard continues in Part 4, Reflections of a Life in Christ.